Hello everybody, my name is Mike Stopforth and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this Foresight webinar. We're focusing on the retail evolution and it's brought to you by Fortress Retail Real Estate. In attendance, we have Fortress REIT's clients, we have brokers, financial analysts, property partners, and other members of our retail property community here to explore the future of retail. We come to you courtesy, of course, of Fortress REIT, South Africa's leading logistics and retail real estate group, for a jam-packed hour of growth-powering insights as we unpack the future of retail and the opportunities that exist in retail. The retail industry is very much alive and is evolving to meet changing consumer behavior, rapidly changing consumer behavior. The phrase "retail is dead" is truly dead. Our hope is that you leave this session in an hour from now, empowered with a new sense of optimism for the future growth of South Africa's retail industry and how it is evolving to stay relevant to its customers. Shortly, we'll hear from Fortress REIT's CEO, Stephen Brown. Our keynote address will be conducted by futurist, scenario planner, and strategy consultant Graeme Codrington. For more growth-empowering insights, don't forget to give Fortress REIT Limited a follow on their LinkedIn page. And now, over to you, Stephen.
Welcome everyone and Happy New Year from all of us here at Fortress. Thank you so much for dialing in to our Retail Evolution webinar. We've got some fantastic panelists lined up for you, including our very own Vuso Majija, who heads up our retail portfolio here at Fortress REIT Limited. I think when we look at 2020 in terms of what happened to retail real estate and all of the lockdowns, it was a very tough year. But I think what's important is to look forward and look at the evolution of retail, certainly going forward into the future, and get some insights and some industry experts to really tell us what's happening on the ground and how they see things in the future. I mean, we've seen some very interesting statistics in terms of trade and what percentage of retail turnover in the whole country goes through shopping centers, and it's about 70 to 75% of all turnover for retail in South Africa goes through shopping centers, some of which are owned by us and many by the other REITs. And I think it goes to show that there's still a staggeringly important component here to the whole way that retailers engage with their consumers and really turn stock into cash for themselves through shopping centers. So I think when we look at retail, and especially the real estate side, shopping centers are certainly going to be part of the future. And I think that the industry leaders who hopefully you'll listen to today will give you some insights into how they see the future of retail real estate going forward from here. Thank you very much to all of our panelists and contributors today for taking the time out of their busy schedules and really sharing a lot of their insights. And I really hope that you find their insights useful today and sets it up for you to understand a little bit more about retail real estate into the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Fantastic and informative as always. It's now time for us to move on to the next order of business and check in with some of SA's leading retail thought leaders.
South Africa retail will survive COVID. It's not going to be easy, but we'll definitely survive COVID. And we'll survive it because we have the most incredible retail, first world retail platform in South Africa. And we have this dichotomy. We have this first world sophisticated retail and we have this informal quasi-retail. And the combination of the two are absolutely fantastic.
COVID has heightened and accelerated shopper need states, in that value is even more of a necessity now than it was pre-COVID. Shoppers are demanding convenience, not because time is a luxury as it was pre-COVID, but because they are wanting to shop in smaller formats closer to home because that's where they feel safe.
If I was asked what advice I would give to shopping malls about building their brand experience for shoppers, I would say look at Mall of America. Mall of America is the largest shopping mall in the United States, and it's right here outside of Minneapolis. So what do they do in the middle of the pandemic in December? They said, Rome is coming to Minneapolis. And they opened up a 10,000 square foot exhibit from the Sistine Chapel. And they played Mozart. So shoppers could come in and take pictures and experience the art, which was backlit, these beautiful presentations. A friend of mine went immediately. And when she came back, she said, you must go to the Mall of America. It's breathtaking. Did you ever think you'd hear that about a shopping mall, a breathtaking experience?
So consumers will continue to consume, but they'll do it in a different manner, is our sense of it. I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see a convergence between the traditional bricks and mortar side of the business and digitization. So things like web shopping, fulfillment off the website, and in fact payment and delivery. So Cash Converters has implemented during the course of lockdown a web shop where our customers can trade with us in a distributed manner. They don't need to come into the store.
So look, establishing an e-commerce platform or building yourself a website or reinventing an online website is almost a quarter of the work when it comes to establishing a fully integrated e-commerce offering to your customers. I think the next key to the tool, or the first key to the tool, is having a website. But in essence, that's almost like having a store front, a beautiful store, but it could be in the middle of the Karoo without any passing traffic.
So where do these worlds meet? I think there's some interesting concepts starting to come through, which really are about giving the retailer, the consumer, flexibility. Flexibility in saying, send it to me, or I'll pick it up in the store, or I'm going to go off and buy the item because I want the experience of going to a store, going to town, and participate in the retailing experience. And I think that becomes the important issue.
Shoppers today are less predictable, more demanding, more astute. They are in control. And so understanding the shopper and his or her shopping mission on that day is vitally important. You no longer can spray and pray and hope that it works. You have to be specific about what you're offering.
All of the other things that are going on in the world today make it difficult to trust. And so what does a retailer do with that in mind? I think it comes down to one word, and that word is relationships. And I want to put that word up in lights, relationships. I'm going to tell you a story to explain this better. In my neighborhood, there's a fruit stand, and in the summer there's fresh produce that's grown out in the fields, vegetables, fruits, all of that. And it happens to be in a parking lot where I go to my laundromat. And so I've stopped in there over time and gotten a few things. And well, I got to know the young woman who ran that fruit stand. We built a relationship. So I get on my car and she'd say, hey, Judy, you gotta come over here and try these strawberries. And she's munching on a big, juicy strawberry. And she said, just pick this morning. That's why. My point is, how important is that? It doesn't really matter if that fruit stand was in the shopping mall or if it's out there on the street. It's about the relationship that salesperson and I were able to build together. And no matter where your selling space is, if you can do that, you're going to offer them something that they're not going to get anywhere else.
So convenience, helpful service, in any interaction where you're providing service, you need well-qualified staff members. You need people that can understand what the customer is looking for, that can help the customer, particularly in a COVID time, that are empathetic towards customers. And those retailers that show that degree of empathy, that look towards servicing their customers in a better way and have a real human interaction with customers. We find, particularly in our franchise operation, our franchisees that are most attuned to that are the most successful.
We've got to look at our third-party partnerships. And businesses are going to evolve where we're going to be pulling partners into our business a lot more. Just like the malls and the landlords, how do we work together? How do we pull feet into those things? And it's not going to just be I pay my rent and therefore, it's going to be how do we work together and how are we collaborative? Even collaborative with our competition, because the more people we have in our business environments, the more we all benefit. So I think a lot more collaboration with our partners and tapping into the expertise of our partners, and perhaps even also very importantly on our logistics. And I think delivery options, our third mile delivery, consumers, I mean, that did a 180 flip, and consumers are a lot more focused in on how they get their product within 24 hours, 48 hours or 60 minutes, as some of the retailers were doing fantastically with during COVID.
Retail is dead and everyone is shopping online is a myth. Online retailing was growing at 20% year on year prior to COVID. And yes, it's accelerated with COVID, with some retailers reporting growths of 300% plus. But remember that online is only 2 to 3% of total retail. And so, although it's growing off a really small base. And shopping in store is still going to be the number one shopping experience or shopper mission within the format, at least for the next 5 years.
Look, I think that the golden question is here, what is the sweet spot between in-store and online retail? And the answer is still unclear. And for us, the answer is about adapting and innovating and using a feedback loop from our customers, understanding where our customers are comfortable shopping, and building confidence in the channels that they are potentially more interested in. But there isn't a golden ratio or a golden rule.
Next up, we have a former colleague and dear friend of mine, Graeme Codrington. He's going to be talking to us about some of the consumer trends that we believe will have a massive impact on retail now and into the future.
Thanks, Mike. It's great to be speaking to you today. A few years ago, I got a text message from a friend. It was quite cryptic. He said, "Meet me this Sunday afternoon at this location. You won't regret it." I did a check on Google Maps and it looked like an empty car park. Anyway, I trusted my friend. I was a little bit intrigued and I arrived as requested on the Sunday afternoon. Surprised to discover that it wasn't an empty car park on a Sunday afternoon. It was full, jam-packed with people queuing up. What was this place? It was a pop-up ice cream store. My friend knew me well. I'm an ice cream fanatic. And this was a monthly pop-up store in different locations around Johannesburg. A guy who just loved ice cream would make a whole lot of it for a month, come and sell it in some random car park. The years go by, the story grows, he decides to not make it a hobby anymore, it becomes a brand, he opens some shops, and the years go by and COVID hits. But what this ice cream shop has, of course, is passionate customers, and they've got something that retailers of the future are going to need. They've got a database of passionate customers that they have a relationship with, that they've spent years building experiences with. If you're taking notes, all of these words are important. Data, database, relationship, experience, passionate customers. You see, COVID has accelerated a lot of the trends that were already underway. One of the biggest trends, of course, is e-commerce. And COVID has merely accelerated e-commerce. But e-commerce is not merely about putting your products online and then hoping somebody buys them. E-commerce is a whole new way of thinking. It's not competition to traditional retail. It extends and expands traditional retail. We use buzzwords like multi-channel, of course, but it's even more than that. You see, what you need to be doing is developing a database, developing relationships with consumers, then personalizing your connection with them, making sure that you are, in fact, connecting with them. It's not just about selling. And then one word I haven't mentioned yet, and that is building a platform. The people who are going to do the best in the future, the best when it comes to e-commerce, are people who have a platform. Think of Alibaba and Amazon internationally, Takealot here in South Africa, where people have built a platform on which others can play. What COVID has done for us is it has built the platform we needed, especially here in South Africa, the platform of home deliveries. These guys now on their scooters, the Uber drivers who turned into delivery drivers, who will not just pick up one store's goods and deliver them, they've now created a platform of delivery. Now, of course, we need to extend that into the rural areas over the next few years to make sure that it's accessible to everybody in the country. But the point I want to make is that COVID has accelerated a trend that was already there and not just increased its speed, it's also changed its direction. It means that any retailer needs to be thinking about how they build their database, how they build their relationships, how they create passionate connections with customers, and how they extend their reach through e-commerce. I think there's another thing that's also happening at the same time, and I think COVID might also accelerate this, and that is a generational shift in the way that we think. A generational shift down to whatever labels you prefer, millennials, Gen Y, whatever the language is that you want. Young people see the world in a very different way. And this isn't just a statement about consumers. This isn't just a statement about how young people want to purchase things and how they are rushing online, because they are doing that, of course. It's also a statement about younger people as entrepreneurs. This is where it gets interesting for malls, because yes, of course, you've got your big anchor chains. Yes, of course, you've got your big established brands and the big stores taking up a nice lot of square meterage. But all those small little spaces, the spaces for the up-and-coming entrepreneurs, that's what we're going to have to be thinking about, because they are coming to the retail world with a very different attitude. It's an attitude that incorporates everything I've been talking about. It's a multi-channel, connected, personalized space that changes the way that we engage with purchasing. They see their customers in a different way, and they also will see the relationships that they have with service providers and with landlords very differently too. Which leads to the final trend I want you to think about, and that is a shift that we need to make in the consumer experience, in the way that we personalize and give service to the people that we are selling to these days. I purchased a pair of shoes a while ago from a big, well-known international brand. And I wanted a custom set of shoes. It's kind of my personality. I like things that are unique. And this brand gave that opportunity. You could do it online, but I happened to be near one of their flagship stores. It's a flagship store because you can't really actually purchase anything in the store. The store is being created to be an experience that you go into. And if you're customizing, you don't expect to walk away with your shoes on the same day. You go and have an experience. You feel the fabrics, you choose the design that you want, you build your shoe, and then they tell you that it'll take a week or two for them to make it, and they'll ship it to your home. Once you've placed your order, you then get access to the app, which allows you to track the progress of your shoes throughout the process of your shoes being built. It builds a bit of energy. You get to know where you are in the process. Then one of the final steps I loved. The person who puts the final finishing touches on your shoes and actually packs them in the box takes a Polaroid photograph of themselves with your shoes. Takes the photograph, old school Polaroid, turns it over on a Sharpie, writes on the back of it, "Dear Graeme, Loved making your shoes. I hope you love wearing them as much as I did making them. Regards, put their name in, pop it in the box. You get a little photograph of that in the moment as you wait for the shipping to happen. Obviously, a few days later, your shoes arrive. And you haven't just bought shoes, right? You've bought an experience. You've bought a personalized experience. And you've bought an experience that this company then uses to know more about you in the future. So there's a data collection process as well. Not a big brother invasion of privacy data collection, but an understanding of who you are as a person, your preferences, your desires, and then a response to those. And what we need to do is learn from companies that are doing these sorts of things. Of course, when we come to fashion items, when we come to big ticket items like cars, you might think, well, they're in a special category. I'm selling bananas. What can I do? But that isn't the right attitude to approach the future with. Every single retailer, whatever you're selling, how big or small your ticket items are, you need to be sensing the future rushing at you. You need to be thinking not just about how do you sell more products cheaper and faster. It's about taking into account some of the words I've thrown at you in this session. Let's recap those because they're not just words, they're not just concepts, they're actually the pillars of a future of retail strategy that connects to the consumers of the future. And it's not just consumers in rich, wealthy suburbs. That might be where you see the trends moving fastest, but this is going to happen everywhere, across every demographic, across every economic class, because it makes sense of who people are. This isn't just an economic decision. This is about the way in which people want to engage with the things that they buy and want to engage with the world around them. And the more that people see this happening in other parts of the world, the more that people see this happening online and in TV shows, the more they will want it for themselves, wherever they find themselves in society and in the world. So the first of those words is data. A way to think about this for yourself is to think about in 2025, if you were not allowed to sell the products you're selling now, for some reason, legal came along and said, sorry, you can't sell these things. The only thing you can use is the data you've got. What would you be able to do with your data? What do you know about the people who buy from you? What do you know about what other things they'd like to buy? What else would they buy from you if they couldn't buy what they take from you now, if you know what I mean? Data is your biggest asset in 2025. And you need to start now to build that database. This isn't just a list of the names and telephone numbers and email addresses of people who buy from you and a history of their purchases. This is an understanding of who the people are who buy from you and an understanding of what they want in life, not just what they want from you, which then allows you to create predictive analytic algorithms and models which help you to put in front of them things that you know that they will want and need. Now, of course, if we're talking about physical retail spaces, it also allows you to know exactly what things people are comfortable and confident purchasing online and what things they want to have an experience and a personal engagement with. And we mustn't see e-commerce as a threat or a competition to retail. We need to see it as a natural extension and enhancer of a retail experience, giving people an online experience and then the ability to then come into a physical space for the things that a physical space can do that the online space can't. And unless you're building a database, unless you're building an understanding of what it is that people do in each of the channels you have available to you, you're going to lose out to the people who are getting those insights. So data. The second word is experience. And Yes, people can buy stuff online and still have a great online experience, and that's part of what you have to think about. But there is something about the physical experience. Once this COVID crisis is over, however long it takes to get COVID out of the system, we are going to want to get back into physical spaces with each other, get together with other people. And there could be a rush back into your retail spaces. But those of you who are ahead of the game, and you're not just stocking shelves so that people can fill trolleys with goods and services, but you are giving people an experience, a reason beyond just purchasing products to be in your space, that's going to set you up for success and set you apart from your competitors. Next word is personalized or customized. That's not possible for every class of product, but as much as it's possible, you need to be doing it. And the final word is platforms. We need to be building platforms. Platforms on which other people can play, collaborative platforms where you and others work together. We've grown up with competition. We've grown up with thinking that we should protect our IP and not engage with other people. But that's old school thinking. The future of retail belongs to those people who realize that in collaborating, even with some of your competitors sometimes, you get ahead and further ahead than you would have done without it. The future of retail is quite a lot of what we have been doing brought into the digitally transformed future. But it's also a whole different way of thinking. It's not just tweaking what we've done in the past. It's a different mindset, a different approach for a different world. Yeah, COVID has forced us to be disrupted. It has forced us to take a pause moment, and it gives you the invitation to reset in that moment. We might be living in the same world, but it's a different planet as we come out the other side of this disruption. All the best of success to you and your team as you face the future.
Wow, what fantastic insight from Dr. Graeme Codrington. I had the privilege of working with Graeme a couple of years ago, and as much as I've seen him speak maybe 100 times, I learned something every time. So thank you to him for that window into what the future of work specifically in our space might look like. Which also brings us, very excitingly, to our panel discussion. All right, joining me on the panel today from Fortress REIT is Vuso Majija. From Bathu Shoes, we've got their head of retail, Tshiamo Mathibela. Joining us from overseas, the CEO of NEPI Rockcastle, Alex Morar. And finally, last but not least, Richard Mukheibir from Cash Converters. So Vuso, maybe we can start with you. If we cast our minds back, let's say 6 months. I recall being a part of the Great Rebuild seminar about 6 months ago. It feels like a decade ago, but I wonder if you could talk us through how your mindset, your view of the environment has shifted over the 6 months and some of the strategies, the innovations that you and your team are talking about as you consider how you're going to progress into a post-COVID retail world.
Thanks, Mike. You're right. 6 months ago feels like 10 years ago. But I must say that the retail environment has been in a state of or evolving over the last couple of years. So some of the stuff that we've seen in the past is that the tenant mixes are evolving and changing in response to that change in customer behavior. So if you think back a few years ago, some of the banks were consolidating and closing some branches, making some branches smaller. The department stores, some of them were closing down or looking at their sizes. But at the same time as those were all closing, there were categories that were performing well and are still performing well. And those categories were opening up space and taking up the space that was being left behind by those that were closing. So if you look at, for instance, the more essential items or more essential tenants like grocers and pharmacies, those have been growing and they're still growing. If you look at value fashion and at leisure, we're seeing that still growing. And I think those trends are going to be with us into the foreseeable future. So that's the one trend that I've seen, slight changes in slight changes in the tenant mixes. But also the theme of convenience is continuing. So if you look at our environment, coming out of COVID, in fact, even before COVID, you'll note that the more convenient centers were more robust during the period. And coming out of it, I think those are still performing well. Yes, the super regionals have recovered since then, but I think the convenience factor is going to be with us for a while. If you look at some of the big nationals, for instance, ShopRite, last year they said that for 2021, they aim to open about 97 stores. Clicks opened about 40 stores last year, and they're on a roll out this year as well. And then there are other players who play in our market, people like Power Fashions, Studio 88, Weber's, also wanting to open stores in 2021. So there's appetite from retailers to open stores, but I think the economy, more than anything, is the main hindrance.
Yeah, Vuso, I think you've really summarized some of the key points that we want to pick up in the conversation today. And when we talk about economic growth, our minds immediately go to the SME sector, to startups and entrepreneurs and the role that they play in the ecosystem, and certainly from a growth perspective. Tshiamo, you head up this really incredible, innovative footwear brand that has had to adapt and pivot and think of really interesting new ways to improve customer experience over the last year or so. Talk me through your mindset, some of the challenges you've faced and how you've overcome them and succeeded in the process of doing so.
Thank you so much, Mike. I think for us really, because we are an emerging business, we don't have a blueprint really for a lot of the things that we do. But one thing that we really pay a lot of attention to is really innovation, and as well as customer experience and customer engagement. So, just for example, in the 12 stores that we built last year, just post the lockdown, we were very attentive to the design elements that we thought of during the building of our stores. And these are design elements that really spoke to technological features that allowed us to engage with our customers while they were in our stores, and as well as just, as they walk past our stores. I think one of the really coolest things that we brought into our stores last year was the levitating sneaker machine, where we've actually got our shoes displayed in our shop front. And our sneakers really just look like they're floating in the air. We put into consideration the levels of comfort as people are coming out of lockdown, because we want to pull them back into the stores. We were thinking about atmospheric, such as the type of music that we play, the very specific fragrances that we have in our stores, and just really the imagery and how we engage with our customers through the use of our sales assistants. Another thing that we really tapped into, Mike, post lockdown was the realization that each and every single one of our customers has such a specific and unique story and journey that they are going through. Just being in the lockdown, people came out and had so much to tell us. And so we wanted to, take that information that we got and we wanted to figure out, how do we further engage with our customers on a personal level? And that's when we started, that's when we built SA's first sneaker customization lab. And through that, it was just an extension again of engaging with our customers on a personal level to say, buy a pair of sneakers from us and put a personal touch from there, because again, we don't have a blueprint. It's just the experiences, it's the lessons, it's the attention that we put into our customers' needs that allow us to really build a shopping experience in our stores and on our online platform, where ease of shopping and convenience, again, like Vuso has said, we pay attention to convenience.
Tshiamo, I think that's such a great point around not having a blueprint. Often our legacy thinking, some of the institutional muscle memory that we carry with us can be a hindrance to innovation. Alex, I wanted to come to you quickly to understand the conversation around offline or online, this binary notion of one or the other seems to be fading into obscurity. What advice do you provide clients and partners who are seeking to provide their audience, their customers, with a more seamless omni-channel experience?
So what advice do we provide? I wouldn't say we're advising anybody, but it's certainly a part of our various negotiations and interaction with our various partners. So just to go back a bit to what Vuso was saying, indeed things are changing. I don't think that things will go back to what they were. But then again, things never go back to what they were, 6 months ago, 1 year ago, or 5 years ago. So we're in a continuous evolution, if you'd like. And what is happening now is simply another step in that. And as Tshiamo was saying, there's no blueprint. And as I always say, there's never a single strategy that will work continuously. So you need to keep adapting that blueprint, that strategy, and come up with new ones. The one main suggestion that I usually have is that we need to work together. So as you say, there's no just online or there's no just offline for best results, and best results is judged by customer satisfaction at the end of the day. We, the landlords and the retailers, were actually one ecosystem. I think the word ecosystem was mentioned a few minutes ago. We need to work together to provide the best experience. So on one hand, we need to make sure that the spaces are attractive, well located, sufficiently advertised as a whole. The overall tenant mix is advertised as a whole, and we need to work together to make sure the omni-channel experience is indeed seamless. So both integrating the various retailers' concepts into online, linking it to the digital advertising. So it's no longer a story of just advertising on the side of the highway or the street. You need to mix that with where people are spending lots of time. So human attention span is now scattered across a number of devices. Mobile is becoming more and more important. I think it will surpass usage on laptops and desktops soon enough in terms of retail spend as well. So one main point is we need to have a joint strategy to approach this omni-channel experience.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex. Richard, I wonder if we could come to you quickly. When we think about the combination of restrictions and changing consumer behavior and general uncertainty, the last sort of 18 months or so have been a real roller coaster for organizations that have previously enjoyed an enormous amount of high-touch customer interaction, just like yourselves. Talk to me a little bit about some of the conversations that you've had with business partners, with franchisees over the last period, and what some of the exciting developments or surprising innovations that have come out of those conversations that are really encouraging for you as you think about the next chapter for Cash Converters.
Yes, the last 8 or 9 months has been, to coin a phrase, interesting. I think I would have preferred not to end my career in retailing with some event like this, but it is what it is, as my grandmother used to say, and you've got to deal with it. And that's really, I think Alex was saying as well, it's the context. My sense of it is that this is not so evolutionary right now. It's almost revolutionary. So COVID has just rammed an enormous amount of change in a very, very short period of time. But I think as well, Vuso was in fact alluding to it earlier, it was coming anyway. But what's happened is it's kind of concertinaed into the process. So if I'm talking to my franchisees and the like, we've been operating in South Africa now for 25 years, almost 40 years worldwide. Probably the biggest thing that's happened in our world is the concertinaing of digitization. So it's not, I agree with you guys, it's not either bricks or mortar or online. It's the combination and how the two of them work. So as an example, one of the things that we did last year, when in fact we were planning to launch a web shop facility during the course of the middle of this year, we just rammed it straight into last year, and we're now have the capacity to buy and sell second-hand household goods online, and that the acceptance of that from a franchisee point of view is give me all I can possibly have so that I can keep communicating, keep interacting, keep satisfying the customer needs. And it's kind of that mixture now.
I'm reminded, Richard, immediately of that meme that was floating around recently that said, which of the following accelerated your digital transformation? A, CEO, B, yes. CTO, and C, COVID-19, yeah.
Absolutely, it was C.
It was C, yeah. Vuso, I want to pick up on this idea of accelerating change, or COVID being an accelerant for existing trends, both in consumer behavior and, as we've just heard, in terms of internal digital transformation. Let's focus quite specifically on the consumer behavior element, though. What are the behavioral changes that are most interesting to you, and how are you thinking about them in terms of adding value from an omni-channel or from a bricks and mortar exclusively perspective to clients as we start to emerge from this period of change?
I think the changes from an omni-channel or innovation point of view stems from the need for convenience from customers. Now, there's many ways you can look at that. From a shopping center owner point of view, obviously the type of centers that you need to start looking at would include more convenience centers. I'm talking about the centers that focus on your more essential goods, your grocers, your pharmacies, and then obviously your line shops. But from a digital or tech point of view, what we've done is during the middle of last year, we started rolling out, we went into partnership with a company that focuses on click and collect. So we opened up quite a lot of their booths in our centers. We opened about 10 last year. Towards the end of last year, we did a deal with Takealot, and they opened up a depot at one of our shopping centers. So there are all those sort of things that we were looking at. From a tenant point of view, or a retailer point of view, what I have seen, particularly in the centers where we've got more restaurants and fast foods, a lot of the guys have taken up home deliveries quite a bit. So Uber Eats has become quite big in some of our centers. I think that's where we've seen some changes in response to consumer behavior. I think that one of the things that both retailers and landlords have got to work together on is to produce a customer experience. I think Tshiamo talked about it earlier on. Now, for me, that customer experience doesn't start with the store manager or the salesperson at the shop. That customer experience actually starts with the car guard in the parking area. It goes on with your security, it goes on with everyone else who's in that shopping center environment. We've got to provide a service that is liked by the consumer. So I think that there's some room that this ecosystem that Alex was talking about, landlords and retailers, that they can play in training their staff to make it easier and more to increase the interaction between the customer and the service provider. And that would be a good, it's not going to counter or fight against online, but I think it's going to add to the mix.
So after zooming in with Vuso, Alex, maybe I can come to you quickly so that we can zoom out and look at things from a more global or even more European perspective. I was wondering if you could give us a sense of some of the trends or maybe even specific examples of retailers that you think are doing pretty extraordinary work at this moment in time and what we can perhaps learn from them.
So, I mean, I think it is obvious to everybody that in this time when lots of people had to spend lots of time at home, many retailers entered the online space. So, of course, we all know several of the international brands that already had online stores, but I would say the bulk of the tenant base was not very savvy with that. So it is indeed in this time that there was a big push towards accessing the customer base via other channels, and many tenants did indeed go that route, either via partnerships, either via setting up their own online stores, or entering already existing marketplaces. Many have done a revamp of the click and collect model, so there were lots of new collection points set up. Some of our locations were the beneficiary of these new collection points. There's certainly been a lot more, let's say, touch-sensitive behavior. So card usage, for example, has gone up. You can just see it in the everyday, simply the way people behave. Yeah, so we've done some surveys in our shopping centers, and if you ask people, what's the biggest concern, it is related to safety. You also asked examples of excellent retailers' approach to this. I can't think of something very specific. I mean, I think overall the industry did reasonably well. And okay, of course, I understand that the sales were down significantly, customer interactions were down significantly, but as a whole, to date, we have survived. So in my first meeting with our team this year, I tried to look back and the biggest achievement of 2020, I would say, look, we made it. Everybody's still operational. Everything's still under control. There was no disruption in the capability to keep things going. But our systems, both on the property operations side as well as on the tenants' own logistics and ability to provide goods that keeps the ecosystem going, those have functioned. So I think a congrats to the entire ecosystem participants.
So Tshiamo, I'm aware that as we've evolved and pivoted and attempted new ways of reaching customers or fulfilling on experiences in ways that we weren't able to before, we've all realized, and sometimes quite painfully, that customer experience is only as strong as its weakest link. And specifically for SMEs and for young businesses that are growing rapidly or innovating rapidly, when you think about the ecosystem that we keep talking about and the role that you play in it, what are you looking for in terms of assistance, help? How can we, as different role players in the mix, provide you with better support so that we all benefit from that in the long run?
I think, Mike, for us, one thing that we've really put our attention on, and I think Alex said it, is that as much as there was a disruption, thank goodness, nothing really fell apart, And what we really put a lot of our effort into was just operational excellence. And through that operational excellence, it's helped us to build better relationships, with our center managers and our landlords. Through that level of operational excellence, we have focused on better structures. We have focused on continuously improving. At Bathu, there's a certain process that we go through. So we come up with a concept, we do a bit of a back and forth in it, we analyze the risks that come with that concept. And, as part again of that ecosystem, we then need to think very carefully about the processes, the robust processes that we've built where health and safety is concerned, because we're considering as people come out of their houses, everyone is quite nervous. And so we want to provide a comfortable, clean space, not just for our consumers, but for our staff as well, But again, like I said, as an emerging business, these are just some of the things that we realize and work hard at continuously improving and finding better ways of doing as we go through each and every experience and as we roll out each concept.
What's the craziest idea you've considered entertaining over the last 6 months?
Oh my goodness. I think opening 12 stores in a pandemic. Honestly.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
We've had many moments where we've thought, are we crazy? What are we doing? But 12 stores later, over a period of 6 months, it's been incredibly interesting. And to say really there's been a significant decline in any part of our ecosystem at Bathu, I think would really, I'd be really lying. I think there's so much that we've considered, there's so much that we've improved in because of our attention to innovation and just finding better ways of doing things. And again, most importantly, just paying attention to what our customers need and that level of human interaction that so many people are looking for as they're coming out of lockdown.
So Vuso, I wonder if I could come to you with another question just on this topic of growth, because it is a sensitive topic. It's not lost on me that there are a number of people perhaps that are part of the seminar that are feeling very pensive about the year ahead. When you think about the partnership you have, with your retailers, what growth solutions are you looking at together for the year ahead?
It's strange, Mike, because you in a recession, you in the middle of a pandemic. Tshiamo already said that last year they opened up 12 stores in this market, and up until the end of last year, and we're still seeing a lot of retailers or partners looking for opportunities. So it's not all doom and gloom. I think a priority for us this year is to try and accommodate as many of those guys as we can. I don't know, maybe you should ask Richard what his sort of rollout plan is for this year. But the people that I've been speaking to actually want to open up spaces. Yes, they're also investing in the digital side of things, which is great. But I think the main focus at the moment is to try and find opportunities to open stores.
Maybe just to talk to that for a moment, Mike. Interestingly enough, we've already. So this is bizarre. Long story short, we've got 11 franchises sold and ready for production already, and we're on the 25th of January this year. So yes, we're looking for growth. Interestingly enough, we're looking to reduce the size of our stores, but increase the number of stores. So it talks to costs again, and everybody that's in retail is looking at how do you reduce your costs, how do you reduce your, and part of it is reducing the footprint. And I think digitization is driving that as well. So we've got this omni-channel ability now, but I'm seeing that we're going to open more stores, but probably on smaller footprints going forward.
Isn't it incredible, Richard, and thanks for sharing that, how often discomfort results in really interesting, innovative solutions. The joy of unintended consequences. Thank you it's really encouraging for us to hear that. So Alex, I'm sure you'll agree that there's been a lot of encouraging feedback, a lot of encouraging discussion, and I find myself quite optimistic coming out of our conversation. What are you most looking forward to in the year ahead, as you both from a European outlook, but perhaps from an industry perspective in general? What are you looking forward to?
So, Mike, I think that as we've been discussing, this indeed has been a bit of a revolution or a compression of the future into a short period of time. So there's been a lot of progress in a brief period of time. One of the things that I'm looking forward is further optimizing our own operations via technology, and the end goal of this is evidently having a better service to our final customer. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the detail behind it is substantial. I think everybody has been aware that you need to invest more and more into technology, but in this period, I think the faster and the better that we do that, both us and the retailers, the more we'll be able to provide the adequate experience and products to the end customers.
Certainly true, and thank you for your input. Tshiamo, what can we expect to see from you and the Bathu team in the year to come?
Mike, I'm specifically excited about proving that retail really isn't dead. Specifically where brick and mortar is concerned, because South Africa really, as opposed to the rest of the world that is quite, digitally strong, we still struggle with great internet service. A lot of our people can't afford data, and our people are also not comfortable yet with putting and leaving their personal details online. So I'm really, really excited in the footprint that we're going to be increasing throughout 2021, and I'm also really excited about just some of the innovative research that we're busy undergoing in putting in more engaging features into those stores. I think our biggest goal for this year is really becoming a more accessible brand and tapping into those smaller communities that very few retailers think about, and that for me is really exciting to see what the growth is going to look like from a brick and mortar perspective.
Richard, what's getting you up in the morning? What are you excited about?
First of all, hopefully this health issue will be dealt with. With a little bit of luck, we'll have the vaccine, and we can come out of our homes and interact like normal humans did before the virus arrived. There are just so many exciting things that are going to come out of this. I really look forward to the next 5 years rebuilding helping rebuild the economy, because that I think is probably the second issue that we've got to deal with. Particularly in South Africa, we just can't have another year of minus 8% GDP. Everybody that's involved in the economy needs to put their shoulder to the grindstone and let's build. Tshiamo, I hope you open 24 stores this coming year, and let's get at it and build the economy.
Yeah.
Vuso, perhaps we can get some final thoughts from you and the Fortress REIT team.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. I think what Tshiamo and Richard were saying, the way they are so positive about this coming year, I don't want to hamper on this point, but this is similar to what other retailers are saying. But also I think the other exciting part will be, how do we interact with this change digitally? How do we interact with this click and collect? And more than that, how do we interact with customers adapting to that? Tshiamo was saying that at the moment, particularly in our market, we also did a research where people are not yet trusting technology, but you can see it's changing, and that is going to change more and more. But most importantly for me is the shopping center industry in South Africa accounts for 72% of all retail. So that's about 780 billion per year. So it's an important industry, an important employer. So this thing has got to keep going. For me, economic growth is crucial at the moment, because we are a big employer and we are a big contributor to service delivery and service to the provision of services and products in South Africa. So economic growth needs to improve, and I'm hoping that coming out of this pandemic, everyone involved, private sector, public sector, everyone will work together towards a healthier economy.
Well, Vuso, as a consumer, as an entrepreneur, as a digital advocate, as a South African, I'm really excited to see what will come out of these conversations, out of these partnerships, and out of the many innovations and strategies that I know that you are all working on to help uplift all of us. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for your time and energy. I really do appreciate your nuggets of wisdom and experience, and want to wish you all the best for the year ahead. Thank you very much. And sadly, that brings us to the end of another fantastic Foresight webinar. This one, of course, focusing on the retail evolution and brought to you by Fortress Retail Real Estate. Now, don't forget to check out the other webinar that we previously hosted, The Great Rebuild, which you'll find right here on this LinkedIn page. And of course, follow and share it for more growth empowering insights from Fortress REIT. Thank you and goodbye.